Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Briar Greaves Insurance. Protecting your assets starts with a company you can count on. So whether it's auto, homeowners, flood, boaters, or business insurance, Briar Greaves Insurance are the people to go and talk to. Go to briargreavesinsurance.com today or give them a call at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. It is a Thursday edition of the show, an exciting one we have on deck for everybody tuning in, and we appreciate you tuning in as we are going to react to what went on in the press conference from Bucs general manager Jason Licht. It's always interesting this time of the year. We're very, very close to the NFL draft. GMs don't want to give away too much information, but they also don't want to come off as saying completely nothing at the same time. So we'll try to interpret what Jason Licht was talking about. And of course, we'll answer any questions, comments, and specifically super chats as well. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me, my co-host on Thursday shows, is Adam Slavon. Adam, how are we doing?
Matt, we're doing great, and was really excited to hear from Jason Licht today. Only 2 weeks away from the 2025 NFL Draft, so we're getting so much closer. Pewter Report's going to be doing our annual position previews here in the coming days, and you kind of mentioned it, Matt, like making sense of what Licht had to say, and it kind of took some reading in between the lines to understand kind of his strategy going into the draft, because at pick number 19, it's not going to be that exciting pick, more than likely. Last year, fans waited all the way till number 26, and they drafted an offensive lineman. But there's still possibility that maybe they trade down, or if a player falls to pick number 19, that's where you can kind of see some exciting things happen. And Jason kind of pointed it out today numerous times. He's like, it's going to be all about how the board falls, because comparatively, when you look at this draft 2 years past, it doesn't have so much high-end talent.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like there's as much hype about the overall draft class this year than maybe compared to others. And I don't think it's anything against this specific draft class. I think, for example, wide receiver, which we'll get into later on this show, we are coming off the heels of, I would say, the past 3 to 4 draft classes, like just in an insane amount of talent at wide receiver, where this year it's not bad by any means, but 2 or 3 seasons ago, the wide receiver that would have been, I don't know, the 5th off the board very much could have been the 1st off the board if they were getting drafted this year. It's also, I think, another good example, and not that the Bucs are really going to be looking at the quarterback position, because they're pretty happy with Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask and Michael Pratt, who was on the show yesterday. So definitely highly recommend to everybody to check out yesterday's episode with with Michael Pratt. That is Josh Broussard right there as well. But this year you got Cam Ward, you got Shedeur Sanders. Those are the de facto 1-2 at the quarterback position. Where last year, Caleb Williams was the de facto QB1, but then Jaden Daniels obviously ran the show and was the superstar, and Bo Nix made the postseason, and
Drake
a couple
May.
of other quarterbacks, Drake May, a couple of other guys were in the mix for sure. But that's how it feels across the board, specifically in this one. And during the year, we talk about coach speak, how Todd Bowles will say something without saying it, or try to avoid completely talking about something. Today, we got a little bit of GM speak with Jason Licht, and I understand, and I don't blame him. You don't want to give away information. You don't want to tip your hand by any means. And based on from what we've seen, really the past 3 years with Jason Licht, I don't know if he plays poker or not, but he's got that Lady Gaga poker face down.
Yeah, he does. And this will be his 11th NFL draft now. And just being a veteran GM, like, you're not going to give away, we're looking at this position, we're looking at that position. It's more generalities. But one thing that I took away, and we can kind of talk about it, is when he said this draft is more level, like from rounds 1 to 4, you're kind of getting that same caliber of player where it's going to be a starter level player, but not necessarily a star. But you kind of look at last year, and that didn't really matter because the Bucs got 4 starters, but the best one, the one who had the most star power, was Bucky Irving in the 4th round. So even though that this draft might not have the top end talent of, let's say, Caleb Williams or a Bo Nix, like throughout the 1st round. I mean, last year at number 19, it was Jared Verse. And you mentioned the wide receivers. Brian Thomas Jr. wasn't taken until 23rd. You don't really see that this year. But one thing that you'll see is that there's just so much depth at different position, whether that's defensive tackle, corner. I mean, you're going to see guys rounds 2 and 3 that are still going to be productive players.
And that kind of makes it the right time for the Bucs defense to, if there's any season where they were going to slip a little bit, it might as well have been last season, where now they have to address so many different spots, but because they have to, they can, find the right person, they can find the right guy, and not necessarily have to freak out about losing a player at safety or losing a player at edge rusher, because they know there's going to be a couple of players available. And to go back to what you were talking about with, finding guys so much later in the draft, like Bucky Irving, when he was asked about that with Bucky specifically, he said, if I would have known what Bucky was capable of, I probably would have taken him in the 2nd round or 1st round. We knew that we had a special group of guys, talking about last year's draft class, the individuals, but you still never know until you get out there and they start playing. To say that we knew that it was going to be what it was, no. But just like the last 2 drafts previous to that, we came out and guys were high-fiving, saying we got great guys. If anything, that work hard, that are team guys, all those things. So you knew you had a chance, and we thought at the time that they were good players, but you still never know until you actually get out there. You feel confident about it, but you never know. And I do think Jason Licht has kind of learned from several lessons over the years of being general manager of this team, who to go for, who not to go for, all of those different things. And let's play the video because you brought it up as well. The whether or not to trade and why Jason Licht actually thinks that there isn't going to be as many trades across the board, not even just with the Bucs, but across the board. He doesn't believe there's going to be as many trades.
I don't know about more. There have been years where I've thought about it more than others. It just kind of depends on how things fall. You can't walk into it and say, I am definitely looking to trade back, because you don't know what's going to fall to you. So I do think this year is going to be, I could be wrong. You're going to see maybe a little less people wanting to move up and offering enough to make it worth your while, just because I think the draft is pretty leveled out at a certain point. So you might be able to get the same player in the 2nd round, the same level of player as you can in the 4th round. So at certain positions. So I think you'll maybe see a little bit less of that. I think it's just the way this draft is. We've had some good production. My staff and the coaches have done a great job. Last 3 years, I would say, to combine those drafts for elite. So when you put them all, add them up together. So we try to keep doing it. It doesn't always work out that way, but keep doing it. But I think this particular draft just seems to be a little bit more leveled out, which I'm excited about. I'm not saying that that's something I don't like about this draft. It's something I do like about the draft.
And that's something I find very interesting, Adam, because we've had these type of press conferences before, and Jason sometimes will, again, not tip his hand, but he'll give a hat tip to, oh, hey, I really like this corner class this year. Doesn't mean we're going to draft one, but I really like this corner class. But we've never seen him make, I don't even know if it's a bold prediction, but we've never seen him make some type of proclamation for the entirety of the draft that impacts other teams or what he thinks other teams are going to do. So I thought it was very interesting that, of all things, that's the avenue that he took this afternoon when speaking just weeks before the draft.
And what kind of adds to that sentiment is shortly after, I mean, we reported on like what Jason said, and Ian Rappaport, he quote tweeted it and was like,
It
yeah,
did.
a lot of teams around the league, yeah, are not like looking at trading up. And it just kind of seems like throughout the league, every single team has their first round pick for like the first time in forever. Nobody's really moving up, nobody's moving down. You would think you would kind of hear more of that pre-draft talk at this point, but the fact that there isn't, and the fact that Jason went on record in saying as such, you can kind of take that comment and what we've thought about moving down in recent years. Like the fact that he kind of said that too makes you think like if a team were wanting to jump up to number 19, maybe bypass the Steelers and get a quarterback, Jason
Yeah.
would do it. He'd be like, yeah, man, let me move down this board because there just isn't that star, that A-level player that they really want. And it kind of begs the question. I know you and Scott both did a show earlier this week going over 5 first-round targets. If either all of the first-round targets are there or none of them are there, that kind of also begs the question: will Jason move down? And it kind of appears likely.
It very much does, especially when he said that that other team's got to make it worthwhile. But first of all, you're burying the lead. It was an Adam Slavon tweet via the Pewter Report account at Ian Rappaport was quote tweeting. So that was very cool to see. Shout out Ian Rappaport. We
He's great.
Got to chat with him a little bit at the NFL annual meetings. But the Steelers situation, I think, is very fascinating to me. And also kind of funny because like the draft order, the Bucs are the first team that made the postseason to have the earliest draft pick at 19. But at the same time, like the Bucs overall are in a way better spot than the Steelers are. You know, even if they get Aaron Rodgers, and we all know what Aaron Rodgers meant to you and what he meant
He's an
to
enigma.
Me, the enigma. He's not there long term. So, like, the Steelers still need to find their long term answer at quarterback. And sure, they could go with Rodgers and draft the quarterback as well. But for another team, like I almost feel like if someone were to jump ahead of the Steelers to make sure that they get Shedeur Sanders, I mean, it's not going to be the Chargers. It's not going to be Green Bay. It's not going to be Minnesota. It's not going to be any of these teams that made the postseason last year. They're all set. So it makes me wonder who would be that team that would make their first round pick and then get back into the first round at 19. You know, like do the Colts at 14? That's not that far from 19. Do the Colts give up on Anthony Richardson already? Obviously a division team like the Saints aren't going to, trade with the Bucs. But I'm curious if Jason Licht could take advantage of a team that really wants a quarterback. And we see this every year too, Adam. Teams get desperate. They start to panic. And when they start panicking, that's when they start giving away draft capital. And it very much feels like it's almost like a domino effect. Like right now, as we get into the draft, everybody's going to be like, okay, who's going to do something? Who's going to do something? Everybody's looking around. And it just takes the one person to go, F it. All right.
We're doing it.
Or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. And then that'll kind of open the floodgates for everything else. So will it be the Bucs that take advantage of that? I guess that remains to be seen.
Yeah, but the Bucs, as Pewter 941 points out in the comments, they recouped an extra draft pick when the Bills chose to move up and get Josh Allen, and that was the same draft where they got Vita Vea. So there's an opportunity there to really capitalize on kind of the lack of quarterback talent. Because let's say the Browns and the Giants at 2 and 3, they don't take a quarterback. You could see Shedeur falling down the board. A team might be enamored with Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe and want to bypass the Steelers for that pick. And then the Bucs can move down, maybe later first round, but then also get a second round pick, a third round pick, and have that extra ammo to really load up the defense. Because again, the Bucs only have 6 draft picks to really build out so many defensive needs. I mean, you could probably list 4 of them, that like 4 positions that the Bucs need on defense. They should really add at each of them, but only having that amount of capital, a trade down makes just so much sense, Matt. And if you could turn that 6 picks into 8 picks, then you really get to maybe double up on some positions and really capitalize on like the inside linebacker and cornerback rooms that, like, heading into the draft, they're pretty deep.
It all seems like too perfect of a plan. Like, it shouldn't be this easy for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not that they're just going to draft someone and they're going to be amazing, which has happened a lot the past couple of years, but just in the sense of that they will be able to recoup the any draft capital that they lost and turn it into more players. And on that topic, I don't know about you. I just get the feeling we talked about how they need safety, they need corner, they certainly need an inside linebacker, but specifically at that inside linebacker position, I just have this feeling that we're going to see more than one inside linebacker going to Tampa Bay in this year's draft. Call me crazy, but I can see them doubling up with a pick early, maybe not the first round, but a day 2 pick, and then an early day 3 pick with another inside linebacker, truly flood that position the way that they have in the past with other positions, whether it's corner, whether it's safety, offensive line. I mean, look at last year. They went Graham Barton early, first round, and then Elijah Klein later on. I think inside linebacker is that perfect candidate to be a double up position this year.
I agree. Inside linebacker and corner. I mean, when you look at the inside linebacker position, you don't want to overvalue it and draft a guy in the first round unless you're like sure that he's going to be an all-pro player. And historically, that just doesn't make sense. Like, you don't see first round linebackers become Pro Bowlers. You see him become average to kind of below average. But if you get a guy in round 2, maybe somebody like Jeffrey Bassa or Demetrius Knight, and then draft a guy on day 3 like Nicholas Martin, you're adding 2 young linebackers to a room long term where you can have Servassier Dennis kind of lead the charge there. So you look at inside linebacker, but then corner too. And although Jason Licht, he's only drafted 1 corner in round 1 in Vernon Hargraves. Again, as we mentioned earlier, he's learned from some of the lessons, some of the mistakes early on in being a general manager. That's why you see that the Bucs, when it comes to drafting and developing, they're the best in the league. I mean, the Bucs communications, they posted a bunch of stuff on X today, kind of pointing that out. That 20 of 22 starters on the Bucs last year were drafted. 44 of 53, 83% of them on the whole 53-man roster were either drafted or signed as UDFAs. So when it comes to the art, if you will, of the NFL draft, nobody does it better than the man on the screen.
Man, is he like the Picasso of the draft? Is he
He might be
Michelangelo? Is he a Dali? Because they got the museum over here. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Let's get to another video of Jason Licht. There was a lot to take away from this press conference. And again, like, it's a little bit of a song and dance between the media and the general manager. I'm not even saying the Tampa media. It's just like you're trying to get information while also respecting the directive that these teams have of we can't flat out say certain things, and if we do, we're probably just lying about it. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, they owe us, they need to say this and that. Like, I don't get me wrong, I completely understand why everyone's doing what they're doing, and I don't feel slighted about it the way, I don't know, media people get so worked up like, oh, this one guy didn't talk this one time. Like, it's a big thing in golf right now. Happy Masters Week, everybody. By the way. So I get the whole song and dance, but if we're kind of peeling back the layers a little bit, I thought one thing that was pretty interesting that Jason Licht spoke about was kind of the willingness. Well, first of all, the trust overall and the belief in this team, in this culture they've built, in the guys in the locker room to really like police themselves, but also they're so close that it allows this team and this front office, specifically with Jason, to go out and maybe roll the dice a little bit on a player I don't want to say has like character issues, but has a couple of things that maybe raise your eyebrows. And certainly there are some off the field things where you just got to say, okay, but like, we're not even going to entertain this. But it was interesting what Jason Licht had to say. I'll play the video so everybody can get a little more context.
We've done such a great job of bringing in the right kind of guys for that reason, because they police themselves. Todd has a great culture and great relationship with everybody. Our coaches do a great job. Not all things that you may read about of a player having maybe issues with his attitude or whatever it is are, you can't believe everything you read, but also it's a case-by-case basis with those. These guys are immature. I'll take immature. I mean, they can mature pretty quickly in a locker room like ours and fall in line. Now, there's certain things that we won't tolerate, but a little immaturity is one that we can live with, especially with the culture that we built.
Sounds like Jason Licht is fine drafting Silly Goose or a knucklehead on this team, and we'll get on the straight and narrow once they enter the Tampa Bay locker room.
Yeah, that was the most revealing comment to me, is what Jason said there. We can handle a little bit of immaturity, and you kind of look at the team as a whole, just really being fun-loving. Like the offensive line room, like the group of guys there, like Tristan Wirfs, Luke Gedeke, like they get along, they have fun, but when it comes down to doing business, they handle it on the field.
There's a funny clip. I think it was like the Bucs posted it recently, like last week, but I believe it was filmed at the Pro Bowl because it was Baker and Tristan Wirfs, and they were both there, and they were asking, like, what would the other say about them in terms of their Mario Kart game? Like, what character do they play with? What road do they, or what course do they like the most? And this is an extremely close-knit group. And I think it kind of goes back a little bit to when we had Yaya Diaby on the show.
Yaya Diaby.
When we had him on the show last week. Wow, that was last week. It seemed like very long ago. But Yaya kind of talked about himself taking more of a leadership role and holding guys accountable, making sure everybody's in the right place, not being afraid to call someone else out without also like ruffling the overall feathers of the room and the dynamic of the team and all of that stuff. And I think that's really important because I think there are times that a player will criticize another player, but it's meant to be constructive criticism. But one guy doesn't take it that way, and that's where the fences tend to start breaking down a little bit. The cohesiveness starts to break down, and we've seen time and time again. Like I still remember talking to Kate Otten, asking them about that losing streak that they went on last season. And the big thing that he said and several other guys were that we're not pointing fingers. We're not blaming anybody. And it helps that this team overall is able to get through the mud. But it does feel like they can weather any storm. And even like anyone that they bring in, like you're a rookie coming into a younger locker room, but also some highly touted veterans and well-respected veterans in this league. Like I can't imagine a rookie coming in and being like, all right, like this is my house now. Like we're gonna go by my rules where Mike Evans and Levante David are gonna look at this guy being like, who the hell is this guy?
Who's this guy?
Right, yeah. I was gonna say the Conor McGregor line, but
yeah.
But I like that this kind of allows Jason Licht to maybe go a little bit out of his comfort zone to someone maybe slightly a little bit more talented than what he would have in other scenarios.
Yeah, I agree. And I like that you pointed out that this is a younger team. So again, they could take the chance on a guy maybe being a little less immature or being like immature because you have younger players around him that are going to kind of keep him in check right away. And you look at the defense and the fact that there's a veteran at each level, the offense is really the same way, right? You have Baker Mayfield, you have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Tristan Wirfs. Like these guys are going to hold other players accountable. And in the case of Yaya Diaby, even though he doesn't have that C on his chest, he's still going to be a vocal leader. And you just have so many guys, so many high character guys, the way that the Bucs have built out this roster, that if a player might have like a slight red flag, you could still be like, okay, we can mature him up. And if the talent's there in this kind of draft class where there isn't a whole lot of high-end talent, I mean, maybe you do roll the dice because it's worked out so well.
And speaking of holding people accountable and trusting and all that stuff, there's nobody more accountable and more trusting when it comes to finding the right than Briar Greaves insurance. You heard me talk about it before. I'm going to talk about it again with our friends over at Briar Greaves. You're a longtime listener of this podcast. You probably remember the late great Mark Cook talking about Briar Greaves insurance. Pewter Report Scott Reynolds also has been a Briar Greaves customer for years, and there simply is not a better insurance company in the Tampa Bay area. So visit briargreavesinsurance.com to see for yourself. Briar Greaves Insurance is family owned, and their main goal is helping people. They want to help people find the right insurance policy for you and your family. So whether it's home or auto, boating insurance, or business insurance, turn to Briar Greaves Insurance. Find out why their personal touch and customer service sets them apart. The days of waiting on hold to speak with an insurance representative that you don't even know are over. With Briar Greaves Insurance, you'll have a relationship with your agent who can answer your questions and advise you on the best policies. As two recent hurricanes have shown all of us that live in the Tampa Bay area, there is a cost to living in paradise. Briar Greaves can help make sure you have the right hurricane and flood insurance to make sure you and your home are protected. Visit briargreavesinsurance.com today. That's Briar, B-R-I-E-R, Greaves, G-R-I-E-V-E-S. Call their office today at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. Tell them that Pewter Report sent you. I want to get to a super chat that we had at the beginning of the show. Thank you to Tyler Lavelle for this $2 super
Thank you,
chat.
Tyler.
Who says, round 1, Jade Barron. Round 2, Landon Jackson. Manifesting. Barron is interesting. And I feel like maybe it was you, Tyler, that brought up Landon Jackson the other day. I don't really foresee that happening with Tampa Bay, but hey, I mean, everybody's got their draft crush. Everybody's got the one that they want to go to their team. So I don't hate the hustle. I can't knock the hustle of trying to get your guy to your favorite team.
Yeah, and speaking of draft crushes, if you haven't checked out our roundtable this past week, we kind of went over our own draft crushes. But you mentioned Jide Barron, and the argument for him is that even though he doesn't fit the height and maybe the speed that the Bucs typically look for in corners, one thing that you can't argue is his versatility. Going back to his days at Texas, I mean, Josh Capo, he just came out with a video going over some top corners, and he played 500 snaps at safety, 700 in the slot, and then 800 as an outside corner. So if you're looking for that guy, and if you're a fan of Malachi Starks, it's hard not to be a fan of Barron, because if the Bucs were to draft him, put him at nickel, and move Tyke to safety, I mean, all of a sudden you have a really good secondary. And then you also look at Barron's ball production. He had 5 interceptions last season. You know that Todd Bowles wants ball hawks. He hasn't made that a secret. And I think he would be an interesting fit there.
No doubt about it. And I feel like we spent a lot of this draft season talking about Malachi Starks, but not really John Aaron that much. You can't argue the turnovers and all of the interceptions. The problem is we've very rarely seen Todd Bowles stray away from the sizes and shapes of the corners and safeties that he likes. And unfortunately, Barron, you must be this tall to ride the roller coaster, or in this case, play in Todd Bowles' defense. And for whatever reason, and listen, the overall track record, everybody's going to point to last season, but the overall track record of Todd Bowles has been pretty damn good as a defensive play caller for this team when he was coordinator and then becoming the head coach of this team. So I'm still going to go on the side of whatever Todd Bowles feels like is best for the team. It probably is best for the team based on, his overall experience and success that he's had doing it. But he is a very exciting player, and it's hard not to, make a case for him as well. Joel Elrigan has now been a Pewter Report YouTube channel member for 8 months. Thank you so much,
Wow.
Joel.
Thank you
for all of your support. And says, hello, Pewter people, go Bucs. And also said, we still have people like Golston and David who have been here through a ton of the lean years. That is true. Golston's still technically a free agent, but Levante's back. Mike Evans saw a lot of the bad times, you know? And,
for sure.
You know, Chris Godwin hasn't seen it as bad as Levante and Mike did, but even after they won the Super Bowl and had a lot of success that 2021 season, you still saw Levante and Mike talk about how much they appreciate making it to the postseason, because it's just a damn tough thing to do. And they've seen what it's like on the other side of it when you are a bad team and you're constantly picking in the top 5. And that's something we kind of spoke about with other media after, and some people in the Bucs organization, where, you know, you got to wait a little bit longer when you're picking at 19, but man, if you're picking at 19 or like you mentioned 26 the previous season, that means you have good teams that are winning football games that are going into the postseason versus during the season just being absolutely freaking miserable, watching your team lose week in and week out, and then you're ready for the draft by November. That hasn't been the case for the Bucs for a very, very, very long time. So why not just keep the thing chugging along, right?
Yeah, and when you're a team and what you're looking forward to most is the following draft, I mean, you're in just such a bad spot when you're watching an NFL team and you're a fan of them and you're looking at college quarterbacks more than you are on Sundays. I mean, you're in a bad spot. So fortunately for Jason Licht and the front office, they've done a good enough job to be picking later in the draft, because that's where you want to be. It might not be the most exciting pick, might not be the flashiest skill position player. I mean, we were talking about it before. And the Bucs, they build the trenches early in the draft. They did it with Cansey, Logan Hall, Cody Mauch. I mean, they're not exciting players, but it's also the foundation for success.
It very much is, and that's why this year's draft, it's a little bit of, hey, let's see what comes to us versus what we want and get, and that's why wide receiver can't be ruled out just yet either. Now, we know what Todd Bowles said in West Palm Beach, the NFL annual meeting, and Jason Licht appears to be on board as well.
Franchise, you drafted both of them, but they're getting up there in age. There's no.
Oh, thought the video was going to play.
Franchise,
How about
you drafted both of them, but they're getting up there in age. There's no secret about that. Jalen did it out of the park last year, but just the need to constantly try to provide depth at that position. I think Todd told us, I'm not going to look past a good player no matter what it is, including receiver, if he's the best player.
Yeah, we could always use receivers. I think Todd even said you got to score points to win. So, we're fortunate to have those two, and who knows how long they'll play. Could be longer than what people are saying. So, and then, kudos to our offense. Our coaches last year for getting production out of, Sterling Shepard and Jalen, like you said, and, Ryan Miller and these guys. So, but we'd always want to try to keep that group fresh and, look for the next, J-Mac. So, we're not going to overlook that position at all if everything falls that way for us.
I mean, you look at the overall depth of the Bucs at wide receiver. Like, how high are we on Sterling Shepard? I guess is one part of the equation. Mike, amazing. Chris, amazing. But Mike, a little bit older. I'm not saying he's going to have a bad season or anything.
Yeah.
Godwin coming off of an injury. Like, there's outside of Mike, I don't think you really have a sure thing on this Bucs wide receiver depth chart. Like Godwin, until we see, I am confident Godwin will get to the level that we've seen Chris Godwin play.
Right.
But
yeah,
can they afford to wait until November to have that? I don't necessarily know. A lot of this relies on Jalen McMillan who had a great end of the season, but also did not have a 100-yard game last year, had some ticky-tack injuries here and there. The more it gets discussed, the more I'm kind of down with the wide receiver in the first round.
Yeah, I'm kind of down with it too, especially like if the first wave of players, like that pool of players is gone defensively, but you have Matthew Golden, for example, like just staring you right in the face saying, "Hey,
Top 30
I'm a
visit.
really talented, yeah, top 30 visit. I'm a really talented wide receiver. Why don't you take me?" And it's kind of that argument that Mike Evans, he's in his early 30s. Chris Godwin just came off a really bad injury. Jalen McMillan, he's young. You're hoping that he's that long-term guy, but he also could use a partner in crime in that wide receiver room. And you always want to stay fresh there. And that was kind of Jason Light's words. And you kind of look at that or a guy like Jalen Knoll. And it kind of seems like even if you were to draft a wide receiver in the first round, that doesn't mean you still can't add defensive help with all the other picks. Like if you took 5 defensive players from rounds 2 to 7, but drafted a really good wide receiver, I mean, you can't really complain about that.
No, you can't. And I think it's important to point out, like last year's draft was very, very offensive heavy. Like I think the only defensive guys were Chris Braswell and Tyke Smith. The Bucs very much this year, when it's all said and done, it could be, and it should be, mostly defense sprinkled with a little bit of offense. But even if you're only drafting one offensive guy, well, shoot, if it's in the first round, better for the team, because we've seen with this group, they can find talent anywhere. You know, like if you go with a wide receiver in the first round, that doesn't mean that they can't find their next starting corner in the second round. I mean, look at Zion McCollum. He was a day 3 pick. And now he's what? Their best corner on the team? Maybe that's an argument for another day, but not everything. Sometimes, and I used to feel this way like when I was younger, watching the draft and stuff like that. Like the first round isn't the end all be all. It's the most exciting. It's the flashiest. It's the players you know the most growing up as a fan, all these different things. But you can get a quality starter in round 3 and round 4. We saw it with the Bucs last year. So just truly, truly think about going best player available. And if it happens to be wide receiver, shoot. Let's see a lot of 4 wide receiver sets. I'm down with it.
Yeah, run it and go 5 wide. And you kind of look back to last year, and 3 of the 4 best picks were in rounds 3 and 4. Jalen McMillan and Bucky Irving, the guys scoring touchdowns that got fans excited, they weren't drafted in the first round. So while the first round gets all the headlines, it's in all the mock drafts, I mean, just as important to building out the rest of the roster, a true Super Bowl contender really starts with the decisions that you make in the later rounds. Because without drafting good players on days 2 and 3 of the draft, you're going to be in a bad spot.
The Bucs feel like they're in a pretty good spot with that guy on the screen. That's Josh Grizzard for those listening on the audio. And this is the first chance for Josh Grizzard to give a little input on who he thinks might be best for this offense, who they should draft this year. And this is what Jason Licht had to say about working with Josh Grizzard during this process and what exactly his role is as well when it comes to the draft.
Just his input, but where does he stand in the draft process now that he's elevated to the role of OC?
Just like any coordinator we've had in the past, we just went through draft meetings this week. We get together, myself and a few on my staff, get together with all the coaches, meet one-on-one with the coordinator and Todd, obviously, and talk about all the players that we assign them to look at, which is a lot. And they really get into it. It's very helpful, not just for this year's draft, but it can be helpful down the line too, what they thought about these players. The coaches love to try to do I mean, we've been watching them all year and talking to people for over a year on these players, and they have basically a month to do it. But some of the information they get is very valuable, but it can pay dividends in the future, or when these players get released at some point, or they're available when they're free agents. So some of it's carryover. So they really enjoy doing it, and he's no different. He's got a big passion for it, and I was really, really excited to see him in the meetings in his new role this year of how just detailed he got into it.
Interesting to see from that aspect. Josh Grizzard first-time offensive play caller, but I'm excited to see what Josh Grizzard can do this season. I don't think there's going to be that much of a drop-off with this team overall.
I don't think so either. And just one other comment I want to make about like Grizzard and like the draft process is the fact that when he was with the Dolphins, he helped out with the wide receivers like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So it adds an extra element to where if the Bucs really want to draft a wide receiver, Josh Grizzard, he's probably pretty good at evaluating them, I would say, based on his track record. So just something to point out there. But you mentioned the offense really not taking a drop off, and the fact that all 11 offensive starters are going to be back for another season. The fact that, unlike in previous years, Grizzard, he's been in the building. He probably drew some inspiration from what Liam Cohen did. Being a Yale grad, he probably has quite a bright mind too. So you pair all that together, and you're looking at a guy that he's young, he's innovative, and he had the best third down offense like managing it in the league. So there's just so many like positives like to glean from when you look at a guy like Grizzard. And even if this offense were to go like take a slight step back, like 25 points a game, but the defense gets so much better, the team's record could actually improve despite like any setbacks that the offense might incur, but it's unlikely.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what made it so interesting yesterday when we had Michael Pratt on the show. Of course, we wanted to get his opinion, especially being more of a behind the scenes guy as a backup quarterback, his opinion on Josh Grizzard. And he straight up was like, Josh Grizzard is a genius in what he does. And he said it was so fascinating. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And of course, I would also recommend everybody check out yesterday's podcast with Michael Pratt on the show. But he talked about the collaboration process between not just Liam Cohen and Josh Grizzard, but Baker and the other quarterbacks in the room as well. And they kind of just let it fly a little bit in terms of like ideas where they'd be in a room game planning and Grizzard would be like, oh, well, why don't we do like this and this instead of that and that? And then like they go out and work on it and it would like work very well. It was certainly Liam Cohen's team and the play calling by Liam Cohen, but I think there was a lot more of a presence of Josh Grizzard and a flair of Josh Grizzard in this offense that maybe not as many people realize just because you're going to keep things in-house and not, reveal certain things of that nature. So there's going to be a lot of great things that we see from Josh Grizzard this year. Just like we want to see a lot of dollar signs in your bank account. The best way to do that is to work with great money people like Immuni Financial.
At Amuni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Dude, congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you. And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you?
Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Amuni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
That's right. Immuni Financial has proudly been serving clients across the country since 1980. They can help you with a number of financial situations, whether it's brokerage services, investment banking, annuities, sales and trading, and more. You can set up your child's college account if they want to go to college with Immuni Financial. They also have a seminar coming up this week as well. So go to immunifinancial.com to learn more about it, how to navigate your finances during these times with the tariffs and all of that going on. And they have Immuni Financial offices all over the place. And this webinar as well, you don't even have to be a client of Immuni Financial. It's open to anybody. But if you do want to go into the building for Immuni Financial, you can go anywhere in the continental United States. Yeah, they got Colorado. Yeah, they got Tampa, Florida. But, they also have Illinois. They have, trying to think of places that I don't say like outside of this show as well, or other shows where I've used states. But yeah, you can go to Illinois. You can go to Michigan, New Hampshire, all of these different places. Wisconsin. I feel like I've said Wisconsin before.
Yeah.
You're on the show. Arizona. I haven't thrown Arizona in there in a little bit. Shout out Rashad White playing at Arizona State. But you get the point. Shout out Immuni Financial. Give them a call today. get a free consultation, and see how Immunity Financial can help you. Also, want to give a shout out to our Pewter Platinum members. Thank you to Scott Federico, Rachel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, Dave Anderson, Hezo813, Ash Fishpool, Joel Elrican, Sam, John Dale Morris, Zach Brannigan, RP89, Eric McMillan, Connor For Reals, Zach Jarvis, Kevin Thomas, and Mario Thomas. Thank you all
Thank you.
so much for your support of PewterReport.com. You are the absolute best, and we appreciate each and every one of you so much. And we're very excited to have another Pewter Insider coming up tomorrow that is exclusive to Pewter Platinum and Premier members. We're going to be talking about inside linebackers that the Bucs might be targeting this upcoming draft. That will be the topic on the show. Bucs targeting inside linebackers. And of course, the main reason why we're there as well is to answer questions, comments from you, the Pewter people, and specifically Pewter Platinum and Premier members. Have a couple more shows coming up, though, on Sunday. Adam and Josh Capo will have a 2-round Bucs mock draft. They've had different stipulations with some of their other Sunday shows, and this one, they're going 2 rounds. So don't log off after they make the pick at 19 because they're making a second one as well. But that'll be a great show coming up on Sunday. And then not too far away in the distant future is Pewter Report's live draft show. It's 3 days, April 24th, 25th, and 26th. We go live an hour before the draft each day. So that first day on Thursday, we'll be live at 7 p.m., breaking down the draft, reacting to every single pick, of course, giving our immediate reaction to who the Bucs draft. We go through a ton of different comments that everybody has in the chat. It's like a marathon. It's a ton of fun. So keep on the lookout for that. It's coming up soon. 2 weeks, really. So, yeah, 2 weeks from today, I believe, is when that show is. So keep a lookout for that. Adam, was there anything else from Jason Licht's press conference that stood out to you? Because I have one more thing that I found interesting, but we can get to that in a moment if there was something that you want to talk about.
So there wasn't something from the Light conference that really stood out to me besides what we've talked about, but I do have a question for you, Matt. So this is based on the discussion that we've had. So about a third of the top 30 visits have been revealed, and the Bucs, they brought in players from various positions, whether it's wide receiver, inside linebacker, corner. You really know the needs at this point. But of them, of the ones reported, who to you is the most intriguing one? One that when you saw it, you're like, wow, they're bringing in that guy?
So immediately who popped into my head, but it wasn't like a wow, like why are they bringing him in? But it's Savon Revel. And I'm not surprised that they brought him in. I mean, they had a top 30 visit with him and all of these different things. I'm more intrigued by, does he crack the first round, or does the injury history, totally disrupt like where he could be going in this year's draft? And again, it's not a like, wow, they brought him in, because it makes sense. We talked about him a ton on the show. He's a very exciting player. We spoke to Michael Pratt about him as well. So he's the first one to me that really stood out. Let me take a look at this list real quick.
One thing I will say about Revel, and this is back when we had Trevor Sikkema on the show, and we were kind of going through a mock draft, and we were picking at number 53 for the Bucs, and Trevor was like, there's no way he makes it to 53. And it kind of speaks to his talent, because when he was on the field, he was so productive, but it's like, does that ACL injury really bump him down?
It could very much. We kind of really downplayed I should say downplayed. We were not fond of a lot of the Texas A&M guys. So Shavar Turner was one of those like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Come on, man.
Yeah. So I would say probably Shamar Turner was the one where it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
How
that's
about
fair.
you?
When I look at it, one that kind of it wasn't a surprise, like again you mentioned with Rebel, but Femi Oladejo, the UCLA edge,
Mhm.
and kind of like the scenario like that unfolded last year where the Bucs didn't get a pass rusher in the first round, but they got Chris Braswell in the second. And it's like if Ezaraku, Mike Green, Jalen Walker, if they're all gone by 19, you can kind of see Femi Oladejo not in the first round, but I think in the second round that could be a surprising pick. Like if the team still wants to draft an edge rusher and develop him for a year behind Hassan Reddick and Yaya
Yeah.
Diaby, he kind of stands out to me as like that athletic freak, like a guy off the edge that you're like, man, he could really become something.
Yeah, I don't know if I love him in the second round. I'd really like if he got to the
In the
third
third,
round and
yeah,
and the Bucks were able to draft him then. But yeah, he's a big physical specimen. I would say he was the third best edge rusher at the Senior Bowl after Mike Green and Donovan Ezaraku. But do you want like another power guy when you kind of have that already with Yaya Diaby? And that's always like an interesting case in general is do you want to draft players that are prototypes of other players that you have on your team, or you want a different skill set and a different trait to kind of round out the whole team? You know, it's like, oh, well, this guy's like Mike Evans. Well, all right, well, if
you
he's
want
like
another,
Mike Evans,
yeah,
then you just drafted a Hall of Fame wide receiver, or I'm trying to think, Omar Norman Lott, who was another top 30 visit, played at Tennessee. There's some comparisons to Kalijah Cansey because he's smaller, but he's athletic and shoots the gap really well and is more of a pass rushing defensive tackle. And we know what Kalijah Cansey did. And it's like, all right, well, if he's another Kalijah Cansey, that's pretty damn good. But at the same time, if you had like 4 Kalijah Canseys, is that best for the team? I don't
yeah,
necessarily know. So it's just kind of like an age old conversation.
yeah, that's true.
One last thing I wanted to bring up from Jason Light's press conference I found quite interesting is, again, my biggest takeaways from Jason Light's press conference aren't even specifically about the Bucs. It's like about the landscape of the NFL draft, whether it was, hey, no one's going to trade this year because everyone's afraid to type of thing, or he had a very interesting comment early on. Scott Reynolds, PewterReport.com, actually was the one asking about, like, is it difficult or how difficult is it evaluating an individual player that's on either like a great team or a great
Like
group that
defensive
has
line.
superstar players, like whether it's defensive line or corner, whatever the case may be. And Jason answered it, but then also kind of talked about how because of NIL, things have changed a lot where schools are afraid of like losing who they recruited in their freshman and sophomore year because of NIL and free agency and all that stuff, where like they have to get a little more playing time to keep them happy when
Yeah,
other players that are older are probably better. And I found that very interesting. Let me see if I can find the quote. He pretty much was saying, you single out the player and you watch the player. I guess they're playing more in waves now and they're playing more sporadically than they did in the past. You're still watching the player and evaluating when he's in there. It's a little bit tougher now. A lot of these players at multiple positions are playing less and less because the colleges want to make sure they keep the younger guys there in the pipeline without entering the portal. We talked to a lot of these seniors that are coming out, and they had to be a team player, and they had to allow the freshmen and sophomores to play more, even though they may be better, just so the team can keep the player. You see a lot more of platooning now than you ever have. And I just found that very interesting that he's got his ear to the ground. He's got his eye on the college football landscape and just how different this draft process has been compared to other years doing this.
it really is, and it's a completely different landscape. And I remember back at the NFL Combine when he was talking about edge rushers, like that balance between production and like kind of like traits. When you look at a guy like maybe Shamar Stewart, where he had 1.5 sacks per season, but at the same time, you're like, it's what he does when he's in there. Even if he isn't getting to the quarterback, like, is it still a quality rep? Is it still a quality move? I mean, those things have to factor in too, because you don't want to draft a player just because of the stats. And like the guys that are splitting reps, they might not have the most robust stat sheet, but it's the guys that, hey, when they're in there, are they affecting the game?
Yeah. One thing we know is great and will always have a positive impact is walk-ons and all the delicious food and drinks that you can enjoy.
What an amazing comeback, Coach.
You're not kidding. I mean, we did lose the game badly, but coming to walk-ons afterward, the team got a much-needed win off the field.
Walk-ons for the win.
Shout out to walk-ons. I was actually just there last night, had some chicken and pasta. Delicious meal. Could not recommend it more. Started out with an appetizer, spinach artichoke dip and chips. That was delicious. There's 3 walk-ons in the Tampa Bay area, one in Lakeland, another in Wesley Chapel, and a third in Midtown Tampa, pretty close to Raymond James Stadium. We are almost at the weekend. Enjoy that weekend by going to walk-ons, watching some games. Baseball's in full swing. The NHL playoffs is right around the corner. Same with the
NBA playoffs.
Yeah,
Yep.
Same with the NBA. And tons of great deals every single day, including happy hour. You can go today. Today's Thursday, right? Yeah. So they have it from 3 to 6. So you can jet on over there right now or go from 9 to close. They got happy hour. And 3 to 6 on Friday as well. Fantastic drink deals, fantastic appetizer deals as well. Check out which one benefits you the most, and check out walk-ons. Love going there. Always a fantastic time. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this show. Just a reminder, again, there is a 2-round live Bucs mock draft with Adam and Josh on Sunday, and we got the Pewter Report live draft show coming up April 24th through the 26th. We'll continue to promote that. And Friday, Pewter Insider at 1:30. Bucs targeting inside linebackers. We'll talk with Pewter Platinum and Premier members, getting all of your questions and comments. So in the meantime, if you're not already doing so, please follow us on our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report. And our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment on this video. So, for Adam Slavon, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching. Have a fantastic weekend if I don't see you, and we will see you soon for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.